The latest situation is that the process is now focused around the United Nations Security Council. And that's because negotiations resumed on the 9th of June, but then they broke up again on the 17th of June without an agreement. And just a couple of days later, Egypt wrote its second letter to the Security Council, this time asking for an urgent meeting on the matter and calling the GERD and the situation around it as a potential threat to international peace and security. Ethiopia has replied, rejecting all of these allegations. But the point is, at the moment, we're not in the negotiations, and instead it's this sort of process of diplomatic escalation. And it was in the aftermath of the latest breakdown of negotiations that we had this intervention from the National Security Council in a tweet. I think it should be noted we haven't seen too many other signs of a US government taking a position in the last few days. So at the moment, the tweet is somewhat isolated. But the claim and the position that the NSC seemed to be expressing there was something along the lines of the Egyptian position, that it was Ethiopian intransigence which has prevented the parties from coming to an agreement. Now, as you can imagine, there's a great deal of claim and counterclaim over that. But what we can say is that in the last round of negotiations, the issue that the process most prominently stumbled on was legal issues, and that was relating to whether the agreement that they were trying to sign is going to be legally binding or not. Now, there's a lot more detail behind that, but essentially Egypt and Sudan disagreed, opposed the Ethiopian position that it would not be a fully binding international treaty.
Why has it escalated to this level? And would taking it to the Security Council resolve the issue?
There's two ways of answering that. One would be to explain what Egypt's trying to do. The other would be to give my own crisis group's view on it. I think obviously what Egypt is trying to do is to rally as much international support for its position, including most prominently and most obviously from the US government. It seems to think that international pressure, whether from the UNSC or whether from related activity stemming from it being raised internationally, Egypt seems to think that that will either get Ethiopia to pause its filling plans or get Ethiopia to sign an agreement, which it otherwise was not willing to do. Now, as far as we are concerned at Crisis Group, there is no evidence for that. There is no suggestion that Ethiopia is not going to fill the Renaissance Dam, to start filling the Renaissance Dam next month. There is also no sign, no clear sign that Ethiopia is willing to submit to increased international pressure on this matter. And in fact, there are plenty of signs that Ethiopia is set up, is in the mood to resist any further international pressure on this matter, because of course we saw plenty of pressure from the US government earlier in the year. So Egypt is following a policy of diplomatic escalation to try and increase the pressure, but it isn't really clear to outside observers why they think that that is going to be a successful strategy given their stated aims here.